Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com will join us. We'll talk plenty about the Browns as they get ready to face the Denver Broncos Thursday night. That means Von Miller will be there. We'll hear from Von Miller a little later in the show. But we begin by talking Browns and injury news. That has kind of dominated what's been going on. So no surprise, Kareem Hunt placed on injured reserve, will miss at least 3 games. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, no surprise, placed on injured reserve, will miss at least 3 games. Nick Chubb ruled out for Thursday as well. And Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills, the 2 tackles, did not practice. D'Ernest Johnson will get the start and be the primary ball carrier for the Browns. His first career NFL start. Here's D'Ernest Johnson.
You know, I'm very excited. You know, first time getting a chance to start. You know, always a dream come true.
Does the mentality stay the same?
You know, the mentality stay the same. You know, Coach Stump, he preaches a lot about, you know, how we, you know, he just tell us, like, you know, just prepare us well that everybody's going in to start the game, you know. So, you know, the mentality stay the same. The standard is still high in the room. So, you know, we just got to go out there and execute.
Have you talked to Nick Chubb and Kareem? Any advice, anything from those guys?
They just basically just told me just go out there and just play my ball, you know, just go out there and just do what I do, you know, just go out there and just do what I do, basically, just you know, just play my game.
Let's welcome in Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. And Mac, not ideal. Top 2 tackles did not, top 3 if you count Chris Hubbard. Top 2 running backs out, so it's D'Ernest Johnson.
Yeah, and D'Ernest Johnson showed in some limited time last year that, you know, he's a capable running back at least, and he showed his time in the AAF, you know, under Coach Steve Spurrier. You know, he did show some of that explosiveness, and he showed in spurts last year, like I mentioned, that he has that explosiveness that you really want out of your running backs. And, you know, while, again, like you said, it's not ideal with all of the injuries that the Browns are currently dealing with, you know, for them, it could make sense and really could be a huge benefit for them, given the fact that, you know, Johnson showed that explosion that you want to see and could be somebody who I think could surprise a little bit in a little bit of a smaller backup role here going forward, a little bit of a spot start while these guys are injured and healing up.
Well, so Odell Beckham Jr. didn't practice, but there was a good sign out in Berea as Jarvis Landry took to the practice field, got some workout in, and take a look at Jarvis Landry working out back on the field. Still no word if he can go or not, but it is certainly a good sign and would be very much a welcome addition if the Browns could line up Jarvis Landry and get him the ball some against the Broncos. Again, still no definitive on if he can go. Kevin Stefanski did not rule him out, which means we're telling you there's a chance he could play on Thursday.
Well, and you know what? That's more of a chance we've seen for a lot of these guys. So, you know, I will take that. And, you know, especially with Jarvis, you know, when he first got injured, the question was, you know, what really is causing that pain for you? And for him, it was the cutting. It wasn't necessarily the straight line speed or the running, everything like that. It was the actual cutting in and out of his route. So, you know, being able to see him making those cuts, not looking like he's in pain. Again, I'm not necessarily in the mind of Jarvis Landry at that point, but again, you know, he's making those cuts and he seems like he's being pretty fluid with that. And so, you know, he's getting back to looking like the Jarvis of old. So, you know, I think that's a very encouraging sign, especially because, you know, last week Stefanski talked about how he was mainly just running. Now you're seeing him get into more intricate drills and actually doing the cutting, doing some of the route running that, you know, he is so famous for. So, you know, again, for Jarvis Landry, you know, I think that that's a very good sign with where we're at currently.
So the other news that Browns fans have to deal with and want to hear about, Baker Mayfield. So still not ruled out, still not certain what's going to happen. Limited in practice, did get some practice in, but limited. Here's Baker Mayfield on what will be involved in the decision whether he plays or not on Thursday.
It wasn't ideal by any means. I'm not going to get into details, but it's not the same.
Baker, sorry for being redundant here at all. You said you expect to play. What will tell you that you can't or that you shouldn't?
I think, whenever you do decide to get some of these reps and throw the pads on and simulate these throws, these game throws, if I'm not able to do, and be 100%, then that's where I'd be at. If I have to make that decision, only I know how my body feels. And if anyone questions whether, I'm hindering the team and going out there injured, that's just not right. So it's my decision. I get to say, whether I'm able to play or not, and that's just how it is.
So, Mac, we know the labrum was torn, completely torn, not just partially torn, with the initial injury. It feels worse than it did. But again, Baker is of the mindset that he's going to go out there and play Thursday.
Yeah, and the one thing that I would say, because I've seen people, we've talked about in the past where, certain people will question the toughness of a player or, just walk it off and get out there. I look at this situation with Baker Mayfield, and I almost worry for the guy's long-term health at this point. Again, I think that he's somebody who has shown week after week after week he's willing to play through that pain. He's willing to go through it, take those shots. And, at a certain point, I do worry for the guy. But at the same time, too, like he said, I think that he's going to go out there. You're not going to have anybody that just says, okay, Baker, maybe take a little bit of time off, maybe give a week or two. I don't know. Again, if Baker feels like he's up to snuff and he's able to get on the field, he's going to get on the field. And I think that the only people that will stop Baker Mayfield from getting on the field is those doctors at this point. And I think that that's why, you saw the report yesterday of him getting a second opinion on that shoulder injury. I'm curious as to see what those results are going to end up yielding at this point. But I do still think that it is going to be up in the air as to who starts on Thursday between Baker or Case Keenum at this point.
Well, Kevin Stefanski did address the whole issue as well. And this is what he had to say about Baker Mayfield and the decision whether he gets to start Thursday or whether they go with Case Keenum.
Yeah, I think with Baker and with all these guys, it's a short week. So you got to get out here and see how they look today, see how they look tomorrow, and then make a determination.
He said he still expects to play. Do you have that same expectation?
I think you guys know Baker. He's a fighter. He's as tough as they come. I expect him to fight like crazy to get to Thursday. I think that's a great message to our entire team, and we've talked about that as a team. You got to, on these Thursday night games, you got to fight, scratch, and claw because it's hard, but it's hard on both teams.
And Mac, I get that. Here's where I'm at with it. You're on your third and fourth tackles if Wills and Conklin can't go. Hubbard's out. Maybe even your fifth tackle. That's an issue when you've got Von Miller who's lining up and chasing your quarterback. It's a challenge because that's the type of pressure around the edge that Baker has historically been bothered by in what he likes to do.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I was at the game on Sunday, and again, this season, I thought that James Hudson coming into this year, when he was taken, he was a developmental tackle. I thought that they should have redshirted him, but clearly because of injuries, he's been thrust in the lineup. And did he do all right going up against J.J. Watt? Sure, but it's J.J. Watt, so he's going to get his pressure on the quarterback. The same thing goes for Von Miller. Again, they might have been in the same draft class, but at the same time, those guys both are still able to get to the quarterback. You're going up against a rookie tackle, and not just a rookie tackle. You're having a rookie tackle who is a developmental guy. 3 years ago was playing defensive line, and he's switching sides of the line at this point too, which is no small feat, just as Jedrick Willis as well. So on top of going up against one of the best pass rushers, you're having a rookie tackle switch sides of the offensive line, and you have Blake Hance playing at the left side, who, again, he's played admirably at this point, but still, he's not up to the Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills. And Baker Mayfield back in 2019 showed you just what happens when he doesn't trust that offensive line. And when he starts to all of a sudden get that internal time clock ticking and start going quicker and quicker and quicker. And it took half a season just for him to get out of that last year. So now you're seeing him deal with that. And on top of that, he's also, whenever you get injured, your body tends to correct and try to, maybe take a little bit less strain off of that injury and more towards the other side. So at this point now, I think that you're looking at possibly his mechanics getting possibly screwed up a little bit. forming bad habits when it comes to that injury as well. So I look at this and I worry for Baker Mayfield at this point and throwing him out there, that I think that you're going to end up seeing more long-term ramifications from this injury if you do keep on trotting him out there. As tough as he is, again, at this point, I think that it's worrisome for the long-term future for Baker Mayfield at this point, with the way that, the entire circumstances and this entire situation has played out to this point.
Yeah, there's a lot that is missing from that offense that you're asking one guy to try to help compensate and overcome in Baker Mayfield. All right, Mac Robinson and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, Jeff Saturday will let us know his thoughts on if a torn labrum in the non-throwing shoulder is painful. Plus, we will take a look at one of the Browns on the Pro Football Focus all-week honors, Team of the Week honors. And we'll hear more from Baker Mayfield about balancing his health and what he can do on the field. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Talking Browns as they get ready for the Broncos on Thursday night, a short week for Kevin Stefanski's guys. So Jeff Saturday played offensive line for the Colts, among other teams, for a number of years. On ESPN's Get Up, Saturday talked about playing through pain, especially Baker Mayfield and that injured non-throwing shoulder.
Those people are high. Anybody who does not believe that because it's your non-throwing shoulder, that it's your arm basically is hanging there and falling out of the socket is not going to affect somebody playing. Hey, you know what? Go knock your shoulder out and run a block and tell me how good you feel to go play football. You, by the way, do play football. It's not just about throwing the ball. You just see J.J. Watt run him down. It looked like Drew Brees. I mean, his wing is like pinned behind. I mean, this is extremely painful, extremely difficult to play through. It's absolute nonsense that people think this will not affect his play.
And Mac, I've said that since the initial injury. The non-throwing shoulder still affects how you can play, and it is particularly a concern because of how beat up the offensive line is, specifically the tackles.
Yeah, and that's the biggest concern that I have with this, especially because, again, Baker is somebody who will try to play through the pain. He doesn't want to let you know that, he's hurting it at this point. And the fact that he's even admitted it at this point, that's a huge step for him in the first place. But, again, I look at Baker Mayfield and what he's been able to do to this point, and I think it's very admirable. But at the same time, I also look at, the long-term view for Baker Mayfield when it comes to, him playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And I can't help but worry. I know we talked about it last segment, but the concerns of what can come up and what can form as of habits, pertaining to habits when it comes to his throwing motions and everything like that. I just worry about those lingering around for Baker Mayfield as somebody who's worked so hard to, get those habits down. And he's somebody who's a very technical quarterback and has that elite accuracy. So, I look at him as somebody who needs to have everything right when it comes to his body to be able to be at the highest level that we can see Baker be. And to be quite honest, I don't think that we've seen that quite yet. So, I think that Baker, this injury, it's really debilitating with what the Browns are trying to do and with what Baker's trying to do. So, I really do think that if you think that Baker Mayfield isn't being affected by this at all, you're just being naive at this point.
Yeah, and so Baker Mayfield was asked about the balance of trying to do what he needs to do on the football field, making sure he doesn't turn the ball over, and also kind of trying to protect himself. Here's Baker Mayfield on being banged up and trying to be effective as a quarterback.
Just ball security. I think it was just pure laziness with not having two hands on it. Those guys are going to be coming after me. So especially, with those guys that the Cardinals had up front, they're going to be pursuing. They're going to be trying to, if they miss in the first one, they're going to gang up and rally to try and tackle. So got to have two hands on the ball and just take care of it.
And you mentioned Odell was deep. I think it was on that first one, right?
Yeah. Yep.
How close were you to being able to get that ball?
Pretty close. I mean, it's half a second, milliseconds, whatever you want to describe it, is very close.
So that was trying to complete the ball downfield. And again, that's another challenge. You don't want him taking hits.
Yeah, and that's been the one thing that I noticed especially has been the fact that Baker, that time clock is a little thrown off. He doesn't necessarily, he's waiting for those guys to try to get open more, but at that point he doesn't have as much time because of the offensive line. So he holds onto the ball a little too long, and all of a sudden he starts taking more hits than you really want him to, especially given the shoulder situation. So, it really becomes a difficult balance, for him where, he's trying to fire off some of these passes maybe a little early, but at the same time doesn't want to turn the ball over. And so all of a sudden then that just becomes like an overthinking nightmare, I feel like. So, again, it becomes this kind of chicken or egg situation where with the offensive line, you want to get the ball out quick, but at the same time, you want to be able to take those deep shots, but you also don't want to have Baker take those quarterback hits. So all of a sudden, it just becomes like a juggling act when it comes to Kevin Stefanski, Alex Van Pelt, and the offense.
Well, the other thing is, so Pro Football Focus Week 6 Team of the Week honors, Odell Beckham Jr. Was a wide receiver on the Team of the Week honors. And it seemed like in the second half, they were doing some things that we normally don't see to get Odell involved in this offense. It's important to note Odell Beckham Jr. also missed time in that game with a shoulder injury, so he's banged up.
Yeah, he was somebody who, after he got hurt, ended up going back to the locker room, came back in. I was able to watch him kind of running back and forth on the sideline. You could tell he was really upset, threw his helmet down when he got hurt. He wanted to be back out there. And you saw earlier in the game, and, I got to give credit to Jake Burns from the OBR for putting this out on Twitter as well. But earlier on in the game, they tried to do a pitch to Kareem Hunt, and it looked like that was supposed to be an end around to Odell, where he had wide open field on the other side of the field at that point. They ended up running that same play later on when Odell was hurt, and that ended up going to Anthony Schwartz instead. That ended up being a 2-yard loss. So, they were trying to get him involved earlier, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't working. But like you said, they were really making it an effort just to get Odell involved in this offense in the second half. He's one of those players who, in 2019, he showed he can be explosive. He can be one of those guys who, look, get the ball in my hands. And even last year against the Dallas Cowboys, get the ball in my hands, big plays are going to happen. So at this point, you could see them trying to get him involved at that point. And, he was the highest graded Brown on Sunday. And I look at what they were doing in the second half, and I wonder if you're going to all of a sudden start to see some of those plays coming a little earlier on in the ball game, get him involved. And all of a sudden, then the defense has to respect Odell, and it opens up the offense where, despite the fact that your offensive line is, you're dealing with a lot of injuries and you're missing your top two running backs, it opens up some space. You have to respect Odell Beckham when he's starting to fire off. So, if you get him involved a little early, it opens up the rest of your offense at that point. So, again, I think that Odell is somebody who, you saw in the second half, they were starting to get some things going with him. And I think that this could be just a start for Odell.
So no Chubb, no Hunt. Those are your top 2 running backs. You're not sure you're going to have your top 3 tackles. Jarvis Landry is kind of iffy. Odell is banged up. What can you do on the offense, and what do you try to do, given what you're missing?
I think it's going to be just trying to get some of those short plays, some of those short explosive plays. And that's why I said Odell being key there, because, a lot of times those shallow crosses across the middle, maybe some slants for him. He loved to run those with New York. If you get him involved in a couple of those plays and, maybe gets a couple first downs, maybe gets 15 yards, all of a sudden, that opens up single coverage on Donovan Peoples-Jones, who played phenomenally last week. Between him, all of a sudden, then you can start to mix in Demetric Felton a little bit, who they value him more as a slot type more than the running back to this point. He didn't even get a carry on Sunday as well. Again, I look at these guys, and it's trying to form some of those explosive plays early. You don't necessarily have the time to be throwing the ball deep like you'd like to. But at the same time, you have to create some of those plays in space. You have to find Odell. You need to make the defense respect him. And then at that point, it opens up the middle of the offense for, guys like Austin Hooper, guys like David Njoku, and even the run game with Dearness Johnson, who, he's a good running back, but he also prides himself on pass blocking. So, trying to form some of those short passes, some of those quick hitters, and all of a sudden you can get yourself into a rhythm. But also, too, I would also say make sure that you're utilizing some of those tight ends as blocking for support for those tackles at that point. Because that was the one thing that I was kind of wondering about between David Njoku and Hooper. Maybe keeping one of those guys, doubling up and maybe throwing a chip block on J.J. Watt coming off the edge. Get some of those guys going in the short game, maybe add a blocker or two, create some explosive plays, and I think that you can kind of get into a rhythm early on Thursday night.
Yeah, the other thing I would watch for is some screen plays, both to the tight ends and to the running backs. Nothing that takes time to develop, because Von Miller is coming around that corner. Mac Robinson and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll start talking a little bit of defense. We'll hear from Malik Jackson. Is it time to panic? We'll also delve into the Broncos. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns as they get ready for the Broncos Thursday over at First Energy Stadium. So the Ravens are 5-1. There's a couple of 4-2 teams, and then the Browns sit at 3-3. Browns fans obviously a little concerned. Malik Jackson says, don't get crazy just yet.
I mean, I think it's like, first third of the season, so 1/3 of the season. So, I mean, it's fairly early, but, we definitely need to start picking it up and get it going. But it's no need to panic. We still got things we can control. Things are still in our control. So, just got to start getting things done.
And Mac Robinson, 3-3, okay, not where the Browns wanted to be. 3-4 would be really, really bad at this point.
Yeah, no, to say less than ideal is really kind of underselling it, Dave. And, especially I look at this defensive side of the ball, and I guess for me, it's trying to see that progression from week to week to week. We saw that on the offensive end last year where, it might have been against lesser opponents, but at least you saw growth from week to week to week. And the issue that I take was, okay, week 1 against Kansas City, that's fine. Again, you're going up against Pat Mahomes. What do you expect? Then against the Texans, there were some things that you could have corrected, but, overall by the end, I was feeling a little bit better about them. You still had some pieces out. Then you had back-to-back really good weeks. Again, you have the Minnesota Vikings in week 4 that you played really well against. Chicago Bears, you had 9 sacks. And then just these 2 back-to-back weeks, you've had a big setback. The last couple weeks, obviously JOK, he's now out for at least 3 games. And I look at this group, man, and I'm waiting for that kind of cohesion to kind of set in place here. And there are certain times where I wonder about the scheme, at least when it comes to Joe Woods and some of these players. They need to step up. I feel like somebody like John Johnson, he's getting picked on quite a bit. I understand he's getting paid quite a bit, and that's understandable. But at the same time, he's not necessarily being utilized correctly. When he was being utilized with the Rams, he was more so up in the box, a little bit more, a little closer to the line of scrimmage. But, where he's at now at this point, he's playing more deep safety, and that he's not really the most athletic guy. So, I don't think that necessarily focuses on his strengths quite as much. And now what I see, somebody like Grant Delpit, where he's somebody who he can take a little bit of that role, but I also wonder how much of the injury is kind of playing into that as well. So, I look across the board and I just feel like certain schemes, maybe a little bit more man coverage than zone, but then you're putting a little bit more focus on some of the linebackers, some of the front 7 at that point. So it's a tough balancing act for Joe Woods and the rest of this defense, but you got to find some cohesion here at some point, and it's got to come quick because, again, like you said, a loss on Thursday, that's going to be tough to deal with being 3-4 at that point. You're almost halfway through the year in a couple of games. You got to get this turned around as soon as possible because, 3-4, all of a sudden at that point, you got to be, 7-3 the rest of the season in order to make sure that you're getting into the postseason. It's a tough task. Especially given the injuries that you have on the other side of the ball. The defense really needs to pick it up, and that was the biggest area where I was disappointed on Sunday.
Well, and Malik Jackson agrees with you. He thinks the defense needs to get better, and the defense realized it. Here's Malik Jackson on just the defense needing to play better.
Just get your stuff together. I mean, it's one of those things that, and really Miles brought us up, and we had a conversation with the defense, and he just told us we need to get it together. Giving up 80 points in 2 weeks is unacceptable. So no matter what position we're put in, we want to be great. We need to make stands and push people back and, leave no points on the board. So just really going out there and being exactly who we need to be and being consistent and just playing together and no MEs, really, yeah.
Was that today?
No, that was yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Was it another players-only thing, or how'd that go?
Yeah, this little players only. He just called it up and said what he had to say as a leader. I think we need to hear it, and we'll see Thursday if everybody received it.
And Mac, the last time Myles Garrett took everybody aside and said something, they had the 2 games in a row. Maybe he needs to do that every week. Maybe it needs to be a weekly thing. Myles calls the defense together.
Yeah, just coach has a designated Myles Garrett time, like slot blocked out at this point.
Yep.
I think that that's huge, for Myles at this point. Again, he's really kind of blossomed into that leader. It really seems like yesterday where he was drafted, but all of a sudden now he's becoming more and more of that veteran presence. I look at Myles and I look at the rest of this defense, and, they really do need to step up. Obviously, he mentioned it, over 80 points in the last 2 games. It's not acceptable for anybody given the circumstances. And, I will say this: they did have a good stretch towards the end of the or towards the beginning of that second half. They were really able to limit Kyler Murray quite a bit. But again, you got to be able to sustain that. And I know the offense putting you in a tough position, but when you're having to deal with some of those early points that you gave up, the DeAndre Hopkins screen that was really unacceptable. You gotta be able to tackle on those plays, but again, it's just about stepping up. These guys are very talented. This is one of the most talented defenses in the NFL. And at a certain point, you got to start playing like it. And, I know that might seem a little bit harsh, but look, you brought in a lot of guys. You paid a lot of money. You brought in a bunch of new faces. I know you got to kind of do it on the fly here, kind of go quick. But still, this is put up or shut up time, and it's getting closer and closer to that for this Browns defense.
Yeah, and they had the play where they lost DeAndre Hopkins. How do you lose a guy who's arguably the best receiver in the NFL? You got to know where that guy is on every play. There's just too many blown coverages. If it's because they don't understand what they're doing, simplify it. It's gotten to the point where you can't afford to say, we'll figure it out. Figuring it out is done. You got to be able to go out and play effectively on the defensive side of the ball. Mac Robinson and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we will talk about the Browns playing with a sense of urgency. We'll also take a look at the ESPN Power Rankings and where the Browns are. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Broncos on a short week Thursday over at First Energy Stadium. So ESPN Power Rankings and Confidence Rankings. Browns are ranked 12th this week. Week 1, the confidence ranking was an 8.0. After week 6, it is a 6.0. So the Browns fall down and the confidence drops a little bit, and you can certainly understand that. Having said that, the losses are not horrendous yet. The Chiefs and the Chargers and the Cardinals. So you look at that, and those are 3 elite-level quarterbacks with some high-powered offenses that the Browns have lost to.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I look at so far this season is that the loss that you have, they're at least 2 explosive offenses. And, you can understand why they gave up as many points as they did, but at the same time, it's not excusable. And I do think that you're spot on when it comes to, the confidence at this point. You're dealing with a ton of those injuries. Last year, there were some significant injuries. Obviously, Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett dealing with COVID, and you had a ton of different COVID situations throughout this year. throughout last year. But the thing was is that they were more spread out throughout the year. You know, it was more so just like, okay, you're doing with one here, then as soon as he's about to come back, you're doing with another one here. So it's more prolonged, but it wasn't necessarily all at once. This year, it just has seemed to pile on and pile on and pile on and pile on. So it's understandable why the confidence has dropped a little bit in the Browns. But I do still think that there's the ability for them to still turn that around. Overall, I think that the defense is still extremely talented. You know, we haven't seen a major, loss to them other than Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, which, again, he seems to have been that big-time leader, at least, on the defensive side as well. But, I look at this group of guys, and I think that they just need to turn their play, maybe focus a little bit more. And like what Malik Jackson had been mentioning before, it's more about tuning their own game and making sure that they're staying focused out there. But overall, I do think that you can still turn this around. I'm not to the point where I'm like panicking or anything like that, but I do think that that's certainly understandable for why the confidence has fallen in the Browns to this point.
Well, Dearness Johnson will make his first NFL start, and he talked about how the Browns have to approach this game on Thursday against the Broncos.
We just got to go out there and claw, scratch, or do whatever it takes to get this win, That's our mentality, just going out there and just doing whatever it takes to get a win. Everybody got the confidence, we all got the confidence, just next man up mentality, we just got to go out there and just execute. Everybody just, basically everybody just saying, just go out there and just, do my job. That's what we got to do. We just got to go out there. We all got to go out there and do our job. So that's every week. So nothing doesn't change.
And Mac, again, they got to approach this. I mean, you hate must win, but it's darn near a must win in week 7.
Yeah, just about as close as you can get this early on in the season as you can. But, I think that Dearness Johnson, he came up there with the Kevin Stefanski-ism. So, hey, we got to win this. We got to do our job, on to the next week. And I totally understand that approach. But at the same time, I also know that, when it comes to these guys, it's all about stepping up and making sure that you're showing out. And that's why the nice thing about this is it's a quick turnaround. It's really, a chance for them to turn the page and really be able to move on to their next opponent and shift their focus quickly. Despite the fact that they're dealing with injuries, I think that this could be the best case scenario for them to have this game on Thursday night, because I really do think that if there's a team that could use that quick turnaround and that quick focus, it is the Browns.
Well, the other thing is Malik Jackson talked about that very thing. Is it how do you approach the short week? Is it an advantage? Isn't it a disadvantage? Here's Malik Jackson on the short week.
Yes and no. Yes, because you get to walk through, you get to communicate things, but then no, because it's a short week, and if guys aren't, really in it and studying and really getting it together, then they're not going to know what they need to do anyway. So I think it's really just guys just really locking in. This isn't a 9-to-5 job. This is a really all-day job. You're driving home, you're thinking about what you have to do. You're sitting at home, you think what you have to do. You're on a date with the girl, you're thinking about what you have to do. Like, it's just every day you think about what you have to do. So when we get out there, it's flawless.
Kind of like what we do. You think about it 24/7.
Oh yeah. No, there is no sleeping. There's always stuff that keeps on coming up and everything like that. And there's always ways to get better. So I think that he's right, although it may be a little bit extreme, but at the same time, I totally get it. For some people that might not necessarily understand, I totally get that. But at the same time, I think that he's spot on. I think that some of these guys, they're the way that these guys have been playing to this point. It seems like they've been focused on game day. It seems like they've been focused in practice, but I also don't know the behind the scenes. I don't know if some of these guys maybe have been slacking off a little bit behind the scenes. I'm not really sure. I'm not there. I'm just a personality talking about what they do on the field. But at the same time, I do think that this is a team that can have that quick turnaround. They can shift that focus. And like he said, it's staying locked in. So I think that given the short week and given the way that the team lost on Sunday, I almost feel like this is kind of the perfect scenario for them going into this week. And I think that this could be a good experiment for them and a good jumping off point for them going this week.
So as you look at this, before I let you go, how do you see the Thursday night game between the Broncos and the Browns playing out? What do you think?
You know, I would say this. I think that it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game by any means, because I do think that the defense is going to be able to get their things in order. You know, I think one of the biggest keys is going to be locking down somebody like Noah Fant, who had a big game, big end of the game last week against the Raiders. But especially, too, you know, this offense for the Broncos really seems to take off in the fourth quarter. You know, you see a lot of times where they're able to get some of those late touchdowns and late scores to make it a little bit closer. I don't think that there's going to be as much offense going on, but I do think that the Browns are going to be able to do enough. I'm going to have the Browns winning in this game, but I do think that it's going to be closer than some people expect, and I think the defense is going to show up and play well.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say, I think Kevin Stefanski likely takes 3 points when he can get it in this one, because I think they expect a lower scoring game, and that's why I think they will do that against the Broncos.
Yeah, I totally agree. And by the way, I think he will pull a Pat Shurmur since he is coming into town, maybe once or twice, and take that field goal.
All right. Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan, as always, Mac. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me on, Dave. Always appreciate it.
All right, Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue to talk Browns and Broncos. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com will join us. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns football. Browns getting ready for the Broncos on Thursday night. Cleveland will be without Nick Chubb as well as Kareem Hunt. So Dearness Johnson will make his first NFL start. Kevin Stefanski talked about what he has in the Browns' new starting running back, Dearness Johnson.
Yeah, I think you guys saw Dearness in their last season at times, and he was very dependable. He was very accountable. Broke some long runs for us, can really catch the ball. So, similar to the earlier question, I have a ton of faith in Dearness, just like all these guys that may get called upon.
Is he one of those guys who can accelerate once he gets in space?
Yeah, I think, you've seen him return kicks before for us, and he's got great vision. And like you mentioned, when he puts his foot in the ground, he can really accelerate.
Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. And Tim, certainly not Kareem Hunt, not Nick Chubb, but with limited playing time, he's shown he can be an effective NFL running back. All right, we're obviously having a little bit of trouble with...
Oh, I think I got it now. Right now, sorry.
Okay. So go ahead.
Apologies.
No, you're good. We do this
Technical
live.
difficulties.
People don't realize we're live. We are live. So he's been effective in limited opportunities.
Yeah, like I was saying, 33 carries last season, 165 yards. He got plenty of his work against some good work against Dallas, the game Nick Chubb went down when they needed some spell carries for Kareem Hunt in that game. Not the same runner as Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but certainly can be productive, especially in the zone blocking scheme where we've seen so many random guys just have big games. And I think in a game like this, you're not necessarily looking for him to be Nick Chubb or be Kareem Hunt. I know there could be pressure to do that because this is a team desperate for a win. You know, you don't have your top two runners. You don't know whether you're going to get your top two tackles into the game. So there could be some pressure, but I think he just needs to be steady, you know, just be productive on your carries, just be efficient. And I think that's something he's certainly capable of. And so I know, obviously, you know, you look back at the preseason when everybody was talking about, is DeAndre Johnson going to stick around or whatever? It certainly looks like it was a smart decision in hindsight.
Yeah, you know, you never know when you're going to need a guy, and they certainly need Dearness Johnson on Thursday night. Baker Mayfield addressed just how the Browns deal with being so banged up as a team.
No one's going to give us, you know, any mercy or feel bad for us. So that's, you know, I'm not doing it to send a message. I'm doing it because we need to win. We're 3-3, and you know the most important game is the next one, and we need to go out there and do our damn job and find a way to win on a short week. So it's as simple as that. And you know, if that's a part of the culture and you know, winning mentality, mindset that we've been trying to build here is you should want to be out there. You should want to be playing for this team. You should want to be fighting for the guys next to you. And if not, then that's not the type of guys we want here. So we're trying to continue to build that mentality and that culture.
And Tim, he was alluding to the fact that, you know, he plans on playing and finding a way to get out there. I get it, but at some point in time, there becomes you know, you got to make sure you don't do long-term damage.
Right, and with him coming out and saying that it's a fully torn labrum, not a partially torn labrum, like there were the reports right after the injury happened back in week 2. The way I'm looking at this is either he plays or you have to shut him down and give him the surgery. You can't really have an in-between because it's a torn labrum. I'm not a doctor, but I don't know if those, so I'm not necessarily sure if those heal themselves. I'm assuming obviously you need to get the surgery. And if you do, that's several months you're out. Maybe it's a situation where if he plays and there's still discomfort, you kind of just shut him down at a certain point with that shoulder. I get it, it's this non-throwing shoulder, but you know, there's clearly some effect it has on him to an extent. And obviously, you know, the injuries piling up on the offensive line, particularly at tackle, hasn't helped at all. Nick Chubb not playing hasn't helped. Kareem Hunt not playing now is not going to help. I know Jarvis Landry can come back any day now, and I think that's good news for the Browns offense. But, you know, Mac was talking about it earlier. It's just, you know, all this stuff is happening at once, and it seems like it happened at the worst possible time of the schedule for the Browns is when they had to go play Justin Herbert and then the next week play Kyler Murray. It just, you know, it's almost a perfect storm the way these injuries kind of unfolded. The only good news and the only good respite for them is this is on paper the easy portion of their schedule.
Yeah, and you get 10 days off between this game and the next, but it's also kind of hit, you know, targeting positions. You had the tackles, and don't forget Chris Hubbard, the third tackle's out. You had the cornerbacks at once. You've now had the running backs at once. You've also had where your wide receivers are beat up. So it's like position specific. So that's made it another challenge for the Browns.
Yeah, no question about it. It's like the injury bug's just knocking on different position room doors the last few weeks. It just kind of, you know, when's their turn to go visit, you know, the linebacking room and the special teams room or things like that. It's all kind of weird. We know the NFL is a collision sport. Injury is going to happen, but it seems almost just inexplicable how this just keeps happening. I think it's something like 20-plus players on the injury report right now. And I know teams like Baltimore have dealt with a lot of injuries, but and also they just sent Ronnie Stanley to the injured reserve today, and he's out for the season. So they're dealing with a lot of injuries. It's just kind of the way of the NFL, but it's just unfortunate for the Browns. That timing matters, and then in this case, the timing of all of these is kind of just piled on them in a hurry.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will continue to talk Browns-Broncos. One thing we learned about the Browns by CBS Sports. We'll also hear from Von Miller getting ready to have a big game against the Browns. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine and too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Browns getting ready for the Broncos Thursday night over at First Energy Stadium. CBS Sports. One thing we learned after Week 6, and for the Browns, it is they might benefit from starting Case Keenum at quarterback in Week 7 on Thursday nights. Tim Bielik, what do you think?
It's a tough one. I think I'm still kind of 50-50 on it. I mean, obviously, Case Keenum starting makes sense. You want to give Baker a little extra time to heal, especially after the setback on the shoulder. But like I was saying earlier, I'm of the opinion that I feel like if you're shutting him down, you're shutting him down long term because you need that shoulder to heal. And that's going to take weeks, if not months, to get done. So you're probably losing him for most, if not all of the season. And by then, unless Case Keenum keeps the team afloat, they're probably not getting into the playoffs. So you're kind of weighing a weird catch-22 here where you can keep Mayfield healthy, but one more hit could pop that shoulder out again or something of that like. And if you play Keenum and then Baker has a surgery, then all of a sudden if the team goes on a losing streak, then you're not going to get in the playoffs and you're not going to get to where you ultimately want to go. So, I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to, I guess, what Baker was talking about earlier, pain management. Does he think it's smart for him to play, or does he think he needs to shut it down for an extra week? It's a tough decision, and it's one I almost don't envy Kevin Stefanski having to make.
Yeah, and he said he will rely on the medical opinion. If he's good to go medically, he will allow Baker Mayfield to play. Baker Mayfield's made it clear. If it's up to him, he's playing on Thursday. All right, Kevin Stefanski and Malik Jackson talked about Case Keenum and what the Browns have in a potential Case Keenum starting as the quarterback, the Browns' backup quarterback.
Honestly, I have a ton of confidence in all of our backups. I really do. I think these guys stay ready so they don't have to get ready. I think they do a great job in the meeting rooms, on the practice field. So, you know, specifically to Case, you know, he's a pro. He'll be ready if we need him, and that's no different than a lot of these guys.
Yeah, Case Keenum is Case Keenum, man. I think I've watched him many years in Minnesota and there's other places he's been at. Man, he knows what he needs to do. You know, we have the utmost respect and confidence in that guy, whoever's back there. You know, it's not my job to sit here and have any less confidence in anybody. I need to go out there and stop teams from scoring 30, 50 points. So that's what I'm focused on.
I like the focus from Malik Jackson. Listen, if the Browns need to start Case Keenum, I think they can win, and I think they can win quite a bit with Case Keenum. It's not going to be fancy, but it doesn't need to be if the Browns have Nick Chubb in the backfield. I know they won't Thursday, but long term, I think they'll be fine with Case Keenum if that needs to be the answer.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we know about the relationship between Case Keenum and Kevin Stefanski, how, Stefanski really helped get the best out of him the year the Vikings went to the NFC Championship game. So we know Keenum has that ability. With Jarvis Landry coming back potentially any day now, that's a huge boost. You give him a couple weapons to work with. We saw Odell have a much better game outside of that fourth down drop against the Cardinals. We Donovan Peoples-Jones had a very good game. I think he's a guy that, I tweeted on Sunday, I think he's a guy that really needs to be focused more because just of so many different things he does. And with those skilled players that they have, Case Keenum could just be a point guard and just kind of distribute the ball, let those guys get the job done on the perimeter. And I think that's really all he needs to do. There's plenty of talent in this offense. The thing you just need to do as a quarterback, at the basics is just get the ball out, rely on your big play guys, and let them go to work. If it means going on an 11, 12 play drive where he's throwing 6-7 yard passes at a time, so be it, because eventually they have the talent to pop one for a big game.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind, Von Miller is on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and Von Miller is bound and determined he is going to have a big game against the Browns regardless of who's playing in front of him. Here's Von Miller talking about what he expects from himself on Thursday.
I don't want to, guarantee a win, for my teammates, but I guarantee I don't want to put the pressure on those guys this time. I'll put the pressure on me, and I'm going to have a great game. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play well, get a couple of sacks. And, if I can do that, then we will win. If you look at, this season, the first 3 games, I had a couple of sacks and we won those games. And these last 3 games, I didn't do as much. So, if I can play well and I can get sacks and I can find a way, to disrupt the game, we'll win. So the pressure's on me to play well. I will play well. I don't know who the tackle is and I'm going against, but I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. And the other guy, too, on the other side. And I'm going to play extremely well, and I'm going to make plays for my team. And, I'm going to set us up to win this game for sure.
Well, it's a pretty good defensive end who is kind of licking his chops at who he might be going up against.
No question about it. I mean, I'm sure obviously he's seen film. He knows the Browns have had to play some backup tackles the last couple weeks. I think, Blake Hance has certainly held his own on one side. James Hudson on the other side has been a concern. I think he's a guy who, there's some potential there, but he's just not ready yet. And I think you can kind of see that he's really playing because they have no other options. The hope, obviously, for the Browns would be if you can get one of your 2 starters back, if you can get Jedrick Wills back or Jack Conklin back, either guy you can get back is going to be a huge boost for this defense, because then you can really focus on protecting the other guy, whether it's Hance or Hudson, whoever you want to play. Then you can protect that guy, put an extra tight end there. I mean, you got 3 tight ends that you put on the field. Use one as a blocker to kind of help out. Maybe use the Ernest Moore to chip. I do think you have to really watch out for Von Miller. He's not the same player he used to be, but still very productive. And he's one of those many players in that Broncos defense that you got to kind of keep an eye on. So I'm fascinated to kind of see how the Browns kind of prepare for that on a short week.
What do you think some keys are as you look at the Browns and Broncos game? How does this one play out? What are some keys for the Browns to get a much-needed win?
I think there's got to play from in front. We've seen the Broncos, they got out to the 3-0 start, but we know the quality of the opponent they played in those 3 wins hasn't been good. I think when I look at the Browns, what they got to do, I think Kevin Stefanski's got to put some trust in Ernest Johnson. I know he's not Nick Chubb. I know he's not Kareem Hunt, but you have to put trust in him to give him the ball like about 15 or so runs a game. Maybe give Demetric Feldman 6 or 7. Maybe give some to Odell Beckham. Give him a jet sweep or something. Anthony Schwartz a jet sweep. Get guys bubble screens. Be creative. If there's a time to be creative as a play caller, this is the time to do it. When you have so many guys banged up, when you don't know who's necessarily starting a quarterback for health purposes, you got to be able to have some creativity. You got to be able to help your players out by getting them in good positions to succeed defensively. The Broncos have some weapons on offense, particularly Noah Fant at tight end. They have an interesting 1-2 punch in Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. I wrote about them in my preview of the Broncos on Monday morning, that they're a pretty balanced 1-2 combination. They're not flashy, but they're both productive. They go between the 2 of them. So I'm fascinated how that works, how that goes against this Browns defense. I think the key, like I said, you got to get ahead. You got to play from the front, lean on the run game, lean on your offensive line, that interior, which is still there, which is still strong. And if you can lean on those guys in a short week, keep things simple and try and find a way to get your playmakers to make some plays, you can come out there with a win, because this is on. I mean, if we're being honest, Denver is not nearly the kind of challenge that, the Chargers and the Cardinals are, but these are 2 3-3 teams. They're both this is a pivotal matchup early, I think, when it comes to AFC wildcard position, because I think those spots right now look like it's going to be between teams in the North and teams in the West. And if you want to get in, if you can't win the division, this is one of the games you got to have.
Yeah, without question. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Tim, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. That'll do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you again tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com, and Tom Withers, reporter for Associated Press, who covers the Browns as well. We will see you tomorrow at 4 right here on Sports4CLE. Have a great night, everybody.